She's become America's military mom. There are hundreds like her in her organization, but the Gold Star Mothers and their speaking bureau is doing this work that we are doing here today all over the country. Please, let's give a welcome to Mrs. Lyla Lipscomb.
I want to say hi to all my Lansing buddies, my Ann Arbor buddies. Can you guys hear me okay? Okay, I'm short, so I should be really close to the mic. Most of you guys in the room know my story. When my son was killed April 2nd, 2003, along with 5 of his buddies in the Black Hawk helicopter. I've been doing this a long, long time. When my son died, I was the only one out here. Senators wouldn't listen to me. President wouldn't listen to me. But I knew within my soul, because my son was a seasoned soldier. He had served 7 years in the military and had went in when he was 19 with the understanding he would retire as a soldier. He had just re-enlisted for another 7 years, 2 months before 9/11. when the Downing Street memo was floating around. He didn't know why he had to go to Iraq, because if it was after the terrorists, why weren't they focusing on Afghanistan? But because my son was who he was and took that vow to protect you, and making his commitment that he would honor the United States of America. He made that stand to go to Iraq rather than to go to Canada, because fleeing in my family is not an option. I think I've proven that over the last 2.5 years. And I'll continue to prove it. But I first of all want to thank you, Congressman. Thank you so much for your courage. Michael Moore gave me courage, and I give you courage. When I spoke at Ann Arbor last night at the Eyes Wide Open, if you've not seen the display, please go give honor to my son, Cindy Sheehan's son, and all my other Gold Star Family for Peace mothers' sons. Go touch their boots. Go look into their eyes. A young woman was standing there and began to sob uncontrollably. You see, she was an American-born Iraqi young lady. She was a young American-born Iraqi woman, very beautiful, has her whole life ahead of her. And yet she stood there torn between her two nations, absolutely torn between her two nations, as she stood at the boots of the American soldiers that had died and stood at the shoes of the Iraqi people, hundreds of thousands that have died. She sobbed uncontrollably, and a volunteer went over and got her and asked her if she wanted to meet me. This is why I do what I do. We fell into each other's arms and cried I don't know how long, and then we asked her if she wanted to say something. And she was petrified. She was absolutely scared to death. And her husband looked at her and he said, "Please, go speak." And she got up to speak, trembling because she was so afraid. And all of a sudden the words just began to come. And at that moment I saw her freedom. And I saw her courage come forth. And if last night wasn't for any other thing in this world, it was for that young woman to be free between her two nations. Aren't you sick and tired of being treated like you're stupid and don't know anything? I want you guys, because we're all Americans in this room, I want you to think about what breeds gangs in the United States of America streets. What breeds gangs? Unemployment, drugs, no hope. True? Is that not what we created in Iraq for terrorism? We did that. We created an environment for the terrorists. We did that. All of you in this room did that. I did that. Because as a nation, we've been sound asleep since Vietnam. We have been sound asleep. And they've only done what we've allowed them to do. And I've been tired of it for a long, long time. And I pray that every one of you, if there's a parent in here that's lost their child in Iraq, could you please acknowledge yourself to me? That's because all my families are around the United States at events just like this today. We have to be out here because we don't have our children any longer. And it's our turn to touch you. And if my job is to touch and inspire you through my pain to get you up off of your lazy butts, then that's exactly what I'm going to do. I was working with one of the Job Corps. I went to a conference in Philadelphia, and I was working and talking to some of the people in the Job Corps, and I found out some astonishing news, and I'm trying to verify the number, but approximately 135,000 youth between the ages of, I think it's 14 and 21, are in Michigan today with no school, no jobs, and no hope. What do you think that's going to breed? Is that not the new military? Have our resources not been stripped from us as Americans so that we can have a stronger military? Think about putting the two dots together. Since my son died, I have to put dots together. I refuse. I absolutely refuse for another child to die over lies and ignorance. I don't have that privilege anymore. And just like Americans, I thought I knew too. I really thought I knew too. But boy, was I fooled. And when you talk to people that have blinders on, you know the ones I'm talking about. What I've learned is you got to go into their face between their space of their blinders. And you look deep within their souls. See, because I'm willing to come to the table and have a conversation, but many aren't. But they have strong opinions. That's fine. But until you have enough courage to come to the table with me and have a conversation, doesn't mean anything. So go in their blinder space. Look within their souls. And if you don't do anything else but plant a seed within their soul, one morning at 3 o'clock in the morning when they get up to use the bathroom and they look in the mirror, they will see that seed flourished and it will have accomplished some good. That's why I do what I do out here, and I will not stop. I've adopted many of my soldiers in Iraq, and the horror stories that I'm getting back from my soldiers would curdle your toes, would absolutely curdle your toes. When you hear, and I met with Iraqi mothers, I've held Iraqi mothers, and when you hear the administration talking about how they're rebuilding Iraq, and then I hear from my soldiers how confusing that is to them, because you know what they're building over there, they tell me? American military bases. Is that an exit plan, or is that a control plan? I encourage each and every one of you. I'm not going to take up any more time because we have a lot to do today. But I love you guys, and if you are touched at all, please go out there and touch somebody else and hug, because only by reconnecting do we take authority back. Do not be isolated. Do not be isolated. Connect. That's how we're taking our authority back.